A new military road was built through the small hamlet of Glenfinnan in 1812, and 3 years later a monument was erected by Alexander MacDonald of Glenaladale to commemorate the raising of the standard there. The Glenfinnan Viaduct was completed in 1901. It was built by Sir Bob McAlpine, Concrete Bob, using mass concrete, the first structure in the world to do so. Loch is a most picturesque loch and has been used as a location for many blockbusters, particularly the Harry Potter movies. The beautifully wooded Ellen Moyne, one of the loch's many islands, was used as a final resting place of Dumbledore. The location was also used for one or two other scenes from other Potter movies. This is a stunning part of Scotland. The most fascinating feature is the little whitewashed church, spectacular from both the rail and the road, against the rugged grandeur of the magnificent mountains of the Rough Bounds. We've finally arrived where the river Shiel meets the sea, and sitting in its rocky tidal island is the gaunt impressive five-sided keep of Castle Tioram. It was built on its island to control access to Loch Shiel. The castle seems to date back to the late 1200s. I sat in the little outcrop and gazed over to the next part of my trip, the Silver Walk. The path is an estate path which was built in the 1800s. A hoard of silver coins was found during its construction, and that's how it got its name. I'd been getting a painful twinge when I was climbing, and it was gradually getting worse. The path was now cut out of the cliffs and very narrow with a precipitous drop to the loch below. My knee was now very painful, too painful to continue and too dangerous in these circumstances, so I decided to return. I soon encountered another of Sir Bob McAlpine's viaducts, and beyond it arrived at Loch, the place of the caves. On the 25th of July 1745, Bonnie Prince Charlie landed here on the shores of Loch in a bid to take the throne, and a year later he left from here as well. A cairn has been placed in the rocks here to mark the spot where he left Scotland forever after his defeat at the Battle of Culloden. I decided to head back to the viaduct. Then I climbed onto a crag above the loch. The road to the Isles is the most wonderfully scenic road, offering the motorist the most spectacular scenery imaginable. But the trip in the West Highland line is truly magnificent. What would you expect to see in exiting a town? The Loch Viaduct. And to make my day complete, I noticed an eagle gliding round and up and down before heading over the viaduct and up into the wonderful crags ahead. I headed on to Arisaig. I remember travelling this route when it was an absolute nightmare, the most frustrating single-track road imaginable. The main road now bypasses Arisaig, and because of that, it is now a little quieter without the through traffic, but the main area in front of the shops still attracts a fair amount of buzz. I camped about a mile out of Arisaig at a seaside campsite. I last camped here about 50 years ago. The site sits in the most beautiful white sandy bay, so I went over for a look around. There wasn't a breath of wind. Across the bay and further inland was another campsite. The bay is protected by the many small rocky outcrops containing pockets of the most beautiful white sand. The views at times were almost tropical. There are over 4 miles of the most glorious beaches imaginable from here to Morar. It was evening now. It was a lovely night for a walk. The view over towards Rum was staggering. I watched for a while as a family made the most of this fascinating evening light. I love the West Highlands. What would an adventure along the road to the Isles be if there wasn't a boat trip to an island involved? So I was catching the shearwater and a trip to Eigg. As we threaded our way through the South Channel, we travelled west past the many little skerries that litter the entrance to the bay at Arisaig. We were easing into the quay. It was an exhilarating sail. It had been bracing in the trip over, but it was much warmer now. It was a beautiful day. The sea was like glass. The boat was tied up and the passengers were now starting to disembark. This trip gives us 3 hours on the island. There wasn't a cloud in the sky as we headed onto the island. It was a huge stone structure containing a map of the island, the various walks marked out in it. I carried on up from the jetty into a wooded area with a few cottages. At a gate, I headed out of the tree cover. The scene just opened out in front of me. The view of the scour overhead was breathtaking. It rears in front of you like some prehistoric monster. Very dramatic indeed. Time was getting on and I decided to head back to the jetty. I made my way back over to the cafe. The sheer water had returned from rum. It was time to get back on board. It was a wonderful day for a sail. We headed back over to Arisaig. This roller coaster of a road travels north until we arrive at the crest of a hill. The village of Morar appears ahead. On the far bank is a hamlet of Boorblach. Then as we pan around, the village of Morar starts coming into view. And all the time the wonderful white sands appear below. They are absolutely breathtaking. The tide was on the way out, leaving not much more than the river. The scene from up here was absolutely stunning. I took a last look around and headed back for the car. I was heading down to the sands below. I arrived at the beach below and looked over. It was breathtaking. I headed down onto the sand. The marram grass was absolutely beautiful. This is a special place. I remember coming here with Roberta on a typical dull July weekend, and she was fascinated with the wonderful silver sand. So fascinated that she filled a couple of water bottles and took them home with her. I still have the sand in a glass container with a few shells. The main road north now bypasses the village of Morar. Mallaig is the bustling terminus of the West Highland line. The section from Port William was completed in 1901. Mallaig is a working port and there's always plenty of atmosphere. With the reintroduction of the steam trains, Mallaig has a healthy tourist trade. The trains arrive twice a day and deposit the passengers in the village for about 2 hours. When that happens, Mallaig is heaving. There was one in when I was there. Mallaig is built to fit in with the terrain. The hotel is built above a rock. Saturday is the best day to visit Canna. It gives you 8 hours on the island. As we rounded the pier, we passed the statue by a local sculptor. The boat calls in Tioram, where a few of the passengers disembarked. There was a very helpful wildlife guide aboard the ferry, and he kept pointing out porpoise and minke whales. As the ferry arrived in port, a piper aboard a small boat welcomed us to Canna. The gravel road swings round from the harbour, and sitting prominently above is the most beautiful little church. It's known as the Rocket Church. Just around the bay is Cafe Canna. Just beyond the Rocket Church, where the main road swings round to the cafe, a side road climbs up to the right. I headed down to a deserted beach of volcanic black sand. The tide was in the way out. At the far end of this peaceful volcanic beach, we find a strange lump of rock that I noticed from the ferry in Corrigan. Just a little further on from the cafe is the Canna post office, and it even has its red phone box, mainly due to there being no mobile coverage in the island. A little further on, I stumbled on St Columba's Chapel. I followed the path round the bay. I glanced across at the cottages in Canna. The Rocket Church appeared on the other side. I had reached the far end of the bay. I headed over to the very impressive deconsecrated St Edward's Church, but it was locked. I was heading for a couple of stacks to the northwest of the lighthouse. That's where the puffins generally breed. I was joined by a pleasant couple with a dog. We scoured the stacks for ages without seeing anything. Then hundreds appeared. I've never seen a puffin before. It was a wonderful sight. I decided to head back. It was time to get back on board. The village of Morar is about 3 miles from Mallaig. Above the station is a viewpoint. It also gives glorious views of Loch Morar. Loch Morar is the deepest loch in the United Kingdom and is over 1,000 feet deep in places. There are 2 or 3 wooded islands at the west end of the loch, and there are also quite a few jetties. The loch is over 12 miles long, and I think I only visited the first 2. It gets even more rugged and wild the further in you get. I decided to call over and visit the sands one last time. This is one of my favourite corners of Scotland. I just wandered around aimlessly for a while. I love Morar. It's paradise. I headed back along the road to the Isles. It's not only one of the best rail journeys in the world, it's also one of the best drives.